Hello and welcome to my channel. Here I review new movies and television shows. Today, I want to talk about a new film in theaters, Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. It's a fantasy adventure movie that was co-written and co-directed by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein. The movie is also co-written by Michael Gillio, who helped them adapt it into a screenplay from a story he wrote with Chris McKay. The movie follows Edgin and Holga, played by Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez, two adventurers in prison for attempting to steal from a Harper stronghold. We learn a bit about them and their history, and then watch as they escape from jail. From there, they set off on an adventure to save their family, steal riches from a villain, and get revenge for past wrongs. They team up with friends, old and new, and take on 3 different quests of epic proportions that all tie into one larger story arc. Along the way, we get to see an awesome chase scene, several incredible battles, awe-inspiring scenic landscapes, and a lot of cool magical effects. Add it all up and you get an exciting film with lots of wacky D&D references, cool action sequences, and a great visual experience. The battle sequences are choreographed in such a way that they give each fighter their own unique style, and they pull off difficult and complex stunts while still staying true to the D&D universe. Olga's fights were especially cool with how wildly she fought. She uses anything around her to her advantage, takes gear from her opponents, and seems willing to stoop to just about any level imaginable. My favorite sequence was her blocking the axe with the brick and then using it to beat the executioner up. The stunt actor for Holga did an incredible job. Visual effects are a normal part of the scenery, and the magic in this movie is not only creative, but so much fun to look at and experience. They use it for visual gags and action sequences, and they make it feel natural. It leads to some of the coolest action sequences, like when Simon, played by Justice Smith, has a giant magic hand battle with the Red Wizard at the end, or when he uses wild magic to flip the gravity in the room he's in. They also have a druid shape changer named Dork, played by Sophia Lillis, who gets to do one of the best escapes I've ever seen on screen. She continually changes from animal to animal as she flees the castle and then the town. The level of detail in the escape was off the charts, and the excitement and impact of it were huge. The other thing I really enjoyed about the visuals was the aesthetically pleasing transitions that they used. Whenever the characters are fast traveling through the world, they are depicted in wide-angle shots that fully capture the majesty and beauty of the lands behind them. They use it to show off a wide array of different climates and geographical features like volcanoes, beaches, snow-covered mountains, vast green fields, and medieval towns. Each of these shots is colorful and vibrant. I found them nice to look at. The cast does a good job of acting in these environments with all of the special effects and depicting the emotion of the adventure in a way that feels natural to the world. If I had any criticisms, it would be that they are too accurate to D&D lore and trying to capture the feeling of playing the game. The characters are stereotypes, which makes sense given the reference to the specific game, but to people unfamiliar with the role-playing aspect of it, the characters will appear shallow and underdeveloped. Edgin is the noble thief, Olga is the barbarian warrior, Simon is the cowardly wizard, and Dork is the manic pixie dream girl who exists to help them on their quest and serve as a goal for Simon to aim for. The film introduces too many characters and tries to do too much in the short span of time that it has, and ends up leaving most of the cast with less time than they needed. Their characters are likable, and each of the 4 main cast members shows off a large amount of charisma, but with the lack of dialogue and screen time, there just isn't much that they could do. I like the characters to some degree and just wanted to see the film spend a little bit more time developing them, rather than introducing characters like Zenk Yendar. He's a cool dude, but all he does is spew exposition for 10 minutes, have a fight scene that was way too awesome for a side character, and then disappear. He didn't need to be in the film, and his entire arc was 20 minutes that could have been spent developing the party. The 2 standouts for me in this film are the stunt team and Bradley Cooper. Cooper appears in one scene as Marleman, the former lover of Holga. He comes in and has this touching scene with Michelle Rodriguez in which the two amicably say goodbye to one another. It's a nice moment, and probably the best emotional scene in the film. Both of them played it really well. The stunt team pulls off some slick-looking fights with perfectly executed choreography, and deserves more than a standing ovation for how cool those fights looked. A job well done. The soundtrack features a lot of generic-sounding adventure music that fits with the scenery and follows the story well. It isn't all that memorable, and at times is definitely too loud, to the point that it starts to conflict with the dialogue, but it serves its purpose well enough within the context of the film. It's at its best during the action sequences when they can add little bits of flavor into it, and it fits better with what's going on. It's still highly generic in sound, but it has a more unique feel than the rest of the film. The story is mostly consistent, but introduces a few plot holes that can't be ignored, and wastes quite a bit of time on characters that aren't relevant to the story and who seem to exist solely to give exposition and context to the audience. I already griped about Zenk, but Zaz Tam was just as bad. He appears for one scene, doesn't actually do anything, and yet we have to learn his entire backstory, and all about him as if he was going to show up and be relevant. He didn't, and all of that backstory was just superfluous. They leave the main characters underdeveloped and only further exacerbate the problem by spending too much time on jokes, action, and references to the game. It creates a world that people familiar with the game will feel nostalgic about, but anyone else will find a little meaningless. Overall, the movie is an exciting visual experience with a jam-packed story, lots of great references to the role-playing game, and a decent message about doing the right thing at its core. Even if you don't like fantasy films, the use of magic and the combat sequences in this film are exceptionally well done, and the scenery is highly appealing to look at. The story isn't the best thing ever, but it doesn't have to be when the rest of the film is a fun adventure. The film takes quite a few visual risks, and its attempt at adapting certain aspects of the role-playing experience into a visual one is definitely experimental. 8 out of 10. And remember guys, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Bye bye!